Alright, so in this chapter we're going to be talking about cameras, and actually we pretty much covered most of the camera tools in this video, the first video actually. So in this one we're going to be talking a little bit more about how camera angles relate to, or how important they are for our overall presentation, as well as how we set up scenes in KeyShot, and also how we identify the scope of work needing to be done. I think that's the most important thing actually. So let's talk about just the camera tab really quick. We'll go through everything again. Basically, we have create a new camera, we have the free camera, and then we have the cameras that we can create and lock. So let's make one more new camera, even though we've done this before. And let's just use all the tools. So let's go to the distance one. We can make sure that we're not wasting space and we have a good crop, which is also very important when you're looking to present images. We have the inclination, which is a up and down rotation, and then we also have a twist if you want to twist your image and make it twist as fuck. And then we also have set camera target, which I don't ever use, but it basically will move the camera looking in the middle right where you pointed. We have the walkthrough mode, and so you can in a way walk through your image using the arrow keys. I never use this tool, but maybe if you have a scene, this would be helpful. I'm not sure. You have to figure that out for yourself. Alright, then we have standard views, which are like left, front, back. And then we have the grid, so we could do the rule of thirds. But I just try and think about this in my head. There is a button for stay above ground, so that you don't ever go below the ground. I don't know why you'd want to use this. And then we also have perspective, orthographic, tilt shift, and panoramic cameras, but I usually use perspective, and if I want orthographic I just change the focal length to 200 millimeters. You could use orthographic if you need it. So it's really important too when you're working with your stuff that you're thinking about, do you want to have a perspective or an orthographic shot? Personally, I prefer orthographics a little bit more sometimes when I'm rendering, because it makes the details the same size in the front and the back, which can be nice because you're presenting an idea, right? It's a design, it's an idea, and you're trying to sell it to somebody by making it clear. And so when it's a shot that's like a design shot and something in the back is like super small, it can look a little bit hard to tell everything that's going on. So back in the camera tab, there's a stereo, the ground grid, and then depth of field, which we've covered, but I'll cover again. So you can select your focal point, and then when you select that, you can pick the f-stop as well as the focal distance. So it's very standard, very easy, very simple to set up. So next, I'm actually not going to talk exactly about the tools. So now what we're going to talk about is how important setting up your cameras is early on. And so when you set up your camera and your positions that you're trying to look at this design from early on, it allows you not only to identify how much work needs to be done, but also identify how the strength of your presentation is. So scope of work is super crucial. If you just randomly start out and you're like, oh, I don't know how much I have to do, well, then that's going to hurt you. So for example, I block out a lot of my posts because I find that it just helps me to identify the strength of it. I say what kind of things are missing, what aren't, how am I feeling about these things, and what's the strength of it. So actually what you can do here in ArtStation, for example, and I would upload the images that I just took, but for some reason it's not working because I have bad internet, is you can go here to preview on community, and you can actually see the strength of your post and how it's going to be coming along and how the shots are working. So anyways, I think it's really important that when you are picking these camera angles and working with cameras that you're already thinking about this posting thing. This should be really early on in your mind. I always pick a main shot, a rear shot, and shots that are going to be showing different aspects of the design. You need to show the front and you need to show the back. You need to show underneath and you need to show etc. You don't need to, but I prefer to. I like to make the idea very clear. Because it's a sales pitch. Presentation is a sales pitch, and so it's super important this early stage that you're working with cameras. The second thing I want to talk about is the groups. We talked about this when we talked about the HDRI editor, But I went ahead and I made two lighting things. So I have group 1, and this is for my rear shot. And so I have a little group here for my rear shot already established. And so when I want to go to my main shot, I click the main shot button, and I have my lighting for my main shot. And so you can see this is how I'm working with both of these things together. So this is actually a pretty simple area, or a pretty simple set of tools, pretty simple ideas. The last thing I'd like to just reiterate is this whole lock aspect ratio thing. Make sure that you are clicking this, because let's say that I were to resize the windows, the aspect stays the same. You turn that off, and now all of a sudden your aspect ratio is different, and so all of your cameras are going to be looking slightly different, as well as the crop for them. So it's really important that you're locking that aspect ratio, or else you're going to have to deal with some extra stuff that you didn't want to. Maybe your images are different. Maybe you're actually wasting screen resolution. Because this is the other thing, right? Like, think about how much space you're taking up on the screen. So like, let's say you want to render out a 2000 pixel image, but now all of a sudden your aspect ratio has changed. Well, then now your gun is actually smaller. So if you use the whole frame, you're going to be getting a higher resolution if you're not wasting space. Alright, so that's a pretty simple chapter. There's not that much to cover as far as cameras, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about how cameras are working with the rest of KeyShot and how it's important. So